What's up, vinyl community? It's your boy Chris, coming at you live. Tunes from the man cave. First things first, I want to thank you guys. The last couple of videos I did, I got the most amount of views and the best response, the most interaction with my viewers that I've had so far. I think my last two videos had 142 views and 120 respectively as we currently speak. And I know a few of you watching this, your videos have thousands of views. So you're probably laughing at me right now. I have no doubt. But when you consider that I had a video about 5 or 6 videos in that had 17 views, I think, and like 2 of them were probably me watching it, criticizing myself, thinking about how I could have did it better. So 142 and 120 are a long way up from 17, especially when you consider the 17 wasn't on my first video. I think my first video did like 80. And I'm up to 97 subscribers now, which is a big deal for me. I never expected more than 3 people to ever subscribe to my channel, to be completely honest with you guys. Ever. So just the fact that 97 of you want to keep up with what I've got going on here from the man cave means a lot to me. And I enjoy doing them. Wish I got to do them more often. So anyway, my intro to jazz video by far got the best response of any video I've done so far, easily. I really appreciate that. So for you guys, I put this together again. This is mostly for the novices to the jazz world. I'm probably not going to show any of you guys that are more seasoned jazz fans. I'm probably not going to show you guys anything you're not aware of. Maybe I will. We'll find out. But in my intro video, I put you guys on to 10 albums to really start a nice, solid foundation for a jazz collection in ways that you could branch off from the respective albums. Excuse me. So the response was good, and I've got a few people that have actually direct messaged me on Instagram and told me that they've gone out and bought these albums. I never expected that. I didn't expect a few people to message me like, dude, I totally went out and bought all these albums. I love them. What's next? So I've sent several of them messages of other albums similar to the ones that they like, you know, or whatnot, and kind of, you know, kept it going. I hope I don't break any of you guys. A couple of them are taking my advice and buying the reissues, though, so that's important. For this video, what I want to do is I want to show, again, for the novices, I want to show you guys 10 artists, 10 albums that are a little less well-known. A couple of them are more well-known than others. You guys might have actually possibly heard of them. And then several of them, I'm sure if you're just now getting into it, there's no possible way you've ever heard of them. But the thing that connects all 10 of them and makes the 10 that I'm getting ready to show you special is that they're all heaters. They're all smoke. They're all awesome. And once again, like what I told you guys last time in the intro video, a lot of these are Blue Note. They may all be Blue Note, actually. Like Prestige, I mean, and all of them but like 2 are original pressings. So again, I'm not showing you, I don't want you guys to think that because I'm showing you 10 lesser known jazz artists that lesser known means cheap. Because for those of you who are seasoned jazz collectors like myself, you will be able to tell you novices that the lesser known means more expensive. Oftentimes. Miles Davis, the Miles Davis like Atlantic, Columbia, whatever, that catalog, you can get that relatively cheap as long as it's after the early 60s. Anything after 61 or 62, I mean, if you keep your eyes open, you can find that Columbia stuff pretty cheap. It's the 50s and the very beginning of the 60s kind of stuff that really goes for some cash. But, I mean, you can build a 6-7 album Miles collection with $100 from the Columbia years if you're smart. If you're smart with your money and you don't fall for anybody trying to con you. But anyway, I digress. I want to show you guys 10 albums, 10 jazz albums from 10 lesser known artists that I think that you guys will be able to get right into. And with the 10th one being something that I'm going to throw at you guys as a challenge, to maybe try to challenge your newfound affinity for jazz, to try to challenge that taste. Just kind of throw you one, just to say, okay, now that I'm down with the hard bop and whatever in the beginning, you know, and the more popular stuff, maybe I want to try to go out there. Maybe I want to try to go a little further out. And it's not that far out, but it's further out than what I'm going to recommend you, what I have recommended you so far and what I will recommend you in this one. That's for the very last one I'll show you. Anyway, recently acquired one of mine, actually. Hootin' and Tootin', Fred Jackson. Guys, this is an original mono. Again, don't for you newcomers. I don't know how many times this has been reissued, to be completely honest. So I hope I'm not setting you out for one that you're going to have a hard time finding. But it's killer. This album really brings it, and it's awesome all the way through. I told you guys about how important the personnel was on jazz records, and they are. And on this one, you've got Fred Jackson himself on the tenor sax, Willie Jones on the guitar, Wilbur Hogan on the drums, Earl Van Dyke on the organ. A lot of those are names you guys, the newer guys, aren't going to be familiar with. But if you find a reissue of that, again, I probably should have did my research on that one just to let you guys know about the available reissues. That's a killer album. That album's smoke. I really, really dig that record. It's that's a recent acquisition of mine. This next one, I flat out can't sing the praises of it enough, actually. Bobby Timmons. This here is Bobby Timmons. It's on Riverside. Mine's an original mono press. For some of you guys who went out and bought Moanin' by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Bobby Timmons not only composed the title track, Moanin', he not only composed it, but he plays on that entire record. He was one of the Jazz Messengers. And his composition, his version of Moanin' also appears right here at the very beginning of this album. It's as good a piano-driven jazz record as I've ever heard. Honestly. I mean, it's up there. I'd put it up there with anything Monk did or anything Horace Silver ever did. And those two guys that I just mentioned are my two favorite jazz pianists of all time. Monk and Silver. They never made bad records. Usually that's kind of how I throw my favorites out, is how many bad records did they make? And if the answer is none or close to none, I'm going to love these people forever. I can't recommend that one enough. And I know that one's been reissued. I know you can get cheaper copies. I believe even OJC, Original Jazz Classics, I think they pressed that one. If they did, I'd recommend that one. That's a good pressing to get. Next up, even a couple of you novices may be familiar with this next guy as possible. Leapin' and Lopin', Sonny Clark. Second mono press for me. It's killer. This is one of my favorite sessions ever put out by Blue Note. I didn't stutter. It's probably top 3 Blue Note sessions of all time for me. It's phenomenal. Another relatively recent acquisition of mine in the last couple of months. I can't recommend it enough. Also, for Sonny Clark, Cool Struttin' would be another one for you guys. And I know that one's been reissued several times over. I think Blue Note's 75th anniversary represses did that. That's a smart way to go for you novices. You can find that one $15 to $22, depending on where you look. I'm positive of it. I know it. I've seen it. I've put eyes on it. I can't recommend that one enough. Go get it. I can't. Leapin' and Lopin', Cool Struttin'. I know I'm not showing you Cool Struttin' in the video. I have it, but anyway. Another great one I want to put you guys on to a live record, because live jazz to me, and there are going to be a lot of my friends that are more rock and roll heads watching this video thinking what I'm getting ready to say is blasphemy. There are no better live albums than jazz albums. Jazz live albums are the best live albums, period, to me. It's not close. I don't care what anybody says. Come at me. I'm sorry. The Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore East is not better than a top live jazz album. It's not, because most bands, most rock and roll acts, most vocalists don't sound as good live as they do in the studio. They just don't. And most of the bands don't sound as good as they do in the studio. And the kind of fan base attracted to a rock and roll band in concert is going to be way more rowdy, going to bring way more ruckus. It's going to be way more screaming and shouting, to the point where oftentimes, especially if you listen to like a freaking Beatles live album, you can't hear a damn thing they're saying. And to me, it's just really annoying. But the jazz albums, the audience attracted to a jazz live performance is way more subdued. They're there in the moment, locked in to enjoy what the greatest musicians in the world are putting out there and bringing to the table. And I mean, clapping after the song, occasional shouts every now and then, but you really it's just as good as listening to a studio album in so many examples. So I'm going to show you this one, and then I'm going to maybe announce another one because I can't help myself. But this is a good one. Kenny Dorham. Round About Midnight at the Cafe Bohemia. This is a phenomenal record. And also by Kenny Dorham, another one I could recommend to you guys. It's been reissued a ton of times. Whistle Stop. I can keep going with Dorham. He's phenomenal. And this is a great one again, guys. Great live jazz record. Highly recommended for you guys, because I don't think, in my last video, I mentioned any live albums, so I wanted to shoot you guys a live album. And also, while I'm at it, I probably should have brought more records in this stack. Dizzy Gillespie, live at Newport. Oh my God. That may be my favorite. That may be my favorite live jazz album ever. But I didn't include that in the video because I like to think everybody knows who Dizzy Gillespie is. If you're a music fan and you're above 20 years old, you should have at least heard the name Dizzy Gillespie. So I wanted to maybe throw you guys somebody you hadn't heard of, possibly. This next one I'm pretty sure you guys haven't heard of. Again, for the novices, not for the vets. Gene Ammons, Boss Tenor. I like everything Jug did, personally. But this is my favorite. I think most people would agree that this one and the album titled Jug are probably his two best. This one's my favorite. It's on Prestige. I know it's available other ways than just this original mono press that I'm holding in my hand. I know it is. So, if you guys just like horns, and Lord knows I do, and you can find a good reissue of that one, guys, Tonto, jump on it. I mean, it really is a great record. Next up, a couple of you guys, you may have heard of some of the artists on this record, but maybe not the artist who puts his name on it so much. Face to Face, Babyface Willette. Possibly my favorite organ-driven jazz record of all time. Possibly. It's up there with like Unity by Larry Young, and it's up there. But I love Babyface. He only put out a few records ever with his name on it. This one's the best, I think. See, it's pretty sufficient to say that. It's got Fred Jackson on it. Okay, if you remember the very beginning of the video when I showed you the very first record I showed you guys was Hootin' and Tootin' by Fred Jackson. He plays tenor sax on this record. Also, Grant Green plays on this record. Grant Green's my favorite jazz guitarist, period. He's one of my favorite guitarists in any genre, period. He's great. I love his style. He's just, man. And the number of records that he played on for Blue Note and whatnot, if you guys start, get into Grant Green and you start going down that trail, you got a lot of ways to go, and it's all been reissued. So that's another thing again. Babyface, Face to Face. I once had a quick side story on this one. Try to make it as quick as possible. I grabbed this original mono, from my boy. You guys hear me talk about him, I think, in every video. You guys are probably starting to think we're about to get married or something. We combined to make one hell of a record collection, man. You have to admit. But my boy at Noble Records, Dylan, acquired this one. Naturally thought of me. He knows how big of a jazz guy I am. But he loves the record too, and seriously considered keeping it. The longer I talked to him, the more I talked him out of it. That's usually how we work. But the trade condition was the most interesting one ever, I think, for me. He calls me up and he tells me, he says, look, this is what I want for it. So this is what I'll take from you, which is less than what it's worth. But if you'll give me this amount, I won't discuss the finances. If you'll give me this amount, and there's a reissue that I just saw on eBay for $12. $12, guys, $12. Says if you will buy me that like now and have it shipped to my house, you've got a deal. So literally, as soon as he tells me that, I'm on eBay on my phone. I don't want to miss out on the $12 record and not, close the deal because it was a great price he gave me. So literally, like I think 3 or 4 days later, the reissue shows up at his house, and as far as I know, he's very happy with it. So it's the only time I ever had to buy somebody a record to close a deal on a record. All right, this next one. Man, this next one cooks. This next one brings the smoke. Don Wilkerson, Preach Brother. It's got Grant Green on it, who I've talked about, who was on the Babyface Willette album. It's got Sonny Clark on it. Huh, when did we talk about Sonny Clark? Just a few minutes ago when I showed you guys Leaping and Loping and talked about Cool Strutting. He also plays on this one, as well as Butch Warren and Billy Higgins. All right, what I like so much about this one, being a born and raised Southern man, is it's got a very Southern jazz sound to it. And that's because Don, if I'm not mistaken, you guys can correct me. One of you more seasoned jazz collectors can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Don is from Alabama, Georgia, somewhere down in there, but he's a Southern guy. And you can really pick up on the Southern roots on this record. This record just, it smokes, and I'm not sure it sounds exactly like any other jazz album in my collection, so I return to it quite frequently. It's a great record. Great record. Again, Don Wilkerson, Preach Brother. Next one up, Sonny Red, Out of the Blue. Fantastic record. It's got Wynton Kelly, Sam Jones, Paul Chambers, Roy Brooks, and Jimmy Cobb on it. So real legends play on this one, and it's just a great record. And as far as I know, I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, it's the only record Sonny Red put out on Blue Note. And mine is super clean original mono, but I'm pretty sure you can find it via reissue. Most Blue Note titles, Blue Note's done a great job with the reissues. Let me just say that. I hope when you guys go looking for that, I hope you're able to find it cheaply reissued. I'm pretty sure you can. But again, another one I can't recommend enough. Phenomenal record. Next up, Larry Young, Contrast. Mine's our first stereo. I love Larry Young. I believe Larry Young died at like age 38 or 39. The story for so many of my all-time favorite jazz artists, they just all died so damn early. Not all of them, of course. Sonny Rollins is still kicking, and I think he's in his 90s now. I mean, so obviously there are exceptions, but so many of these iconic guys. Jazz is no different than so many other musical genres. Like, with rock and roll, obviously you have the 27 Club. I mean, plenty of these legends. Hip-hop, of course, you got Tupac, Shakur, the Notorious B.I.G. I mean, obviously, and I just wanted to let you guys know that jazz is no different. Now, so many of them died because these guys didn't make a lot of money, guys. These guys weren't playing stadiums. These guys were playing clubs. And they were playing clubs every night. And, You don't make the same amount of money playing freaking clubs that you do playing 20,000 seat freaking stadiums like Led Zeppelin played. It ain't the same thing. It ain't the same kind of cash flow. So many of these guys died poor, very poor. And so many of them had addiction problems because of the poverty and whatnot, and the strain of life on the road playing clubs all hours of the night. Another one of the things that I respect so much about jazz is how the dedication to the craft. Because they weren't, a couple of them, guys like Miles and Coltrane, they made enough money to live comfortable suburban lives, but they weren't living in freaking mansions. It'd be really tough to think of a jazz artist that just full-fledged got rich off of jazz music. And guys like one of my favorite saxophonists of all time, Hank Mobley, died a poor man. Just the dedication to the craft, guys, the mastery of their instruments is just one of the many reasons I fell in love with jazz music, outside of just how freaking good the damn records are. All right, I promised you guys a challenge for the very last record I showed you. This is one you can buy reissued. I'm pretty sure the Blue Note 75th touched this one. I personally really like it. It's not one of the first jazz albums I went for, and I don't listen to it as much as I do a lot of the other ones, because a lot of the other ones are more laid back, a lot more easygoing. Hard bop is usually my preferred lane. But Andrew Hill, Point of Departure, more challenging. And by more challenging, it's not your straight ahead hard bop. It's not your straight ahead standard. He did things with the piano I'm not sure very many other jazz pianists did. But it's a great listen. And this is one that I figured, I threw you 10 in the intro video. I threw you 9 pretty easy going, easy listening, easy to like records. And I figured I'd throw you a challenge, because just in case, if you guys have liked 19 jazz albums so far, if you like the first 10 I recommended, and the 9 that I just recommended, then 19 jazz, it's fair to say that you're a jazz fan by now. And you're just going from there. So why not throw you a challenge? Hell, pull it up on Spotify or whatever first and stream it and see if you like it. But I highly recommend it. I love Andrew Hill. Kenny Dorham, again, who was in this stack, that plays on the record. Joe Henderson, one of my all-time favorites. Eric Dolphy, one of my all-time favorites. Anthony Williams. It's a great record. Mine's an original mono press, not freaking cheap at all. It's one of the more expensive records in my collection. But it's very good. And maybe try this one dead last out of everything. And if you like everything I showed you so far, maybe take that chance. Andrew Hill, Point of Departure. He also has several other great ones in my opinion. Compulsion. Andrew. He's one of the more underrated jazz pianists of all time, and a lot of it I understand why, because he took the jazz piano to places where so many other pianists either were afraid to take it, or didn't take it, or just knew that they might not sell as many damn tickets or records. And again, we're not talking about major, because these guys played clubs. These guys weren't selling millions. Jazz albums didn't go diamond. They didn't. Hell, probably not very many of them went gold. So that's just to let you know the dedication of these wonderful musicians. And one of the many reasons I love this craft, this art form so much. It's just the dedication. These guys lived and breathed it, guys. Plain and simple. So, after the intro video, I gave you 10 easily accessible, easily to find reissued classics to branch out from. Again, I felt the need to do this follow-up video because I've had several people DM me, message me, tell me that they went out and bought all of them and loved them. And wanted to know where to go from there. And took my advice about the reissues. They come out with, 10 heaters, for $150. Now I've got so many individual records that cost $150. That's just giving you, I figured I'd do the follow-up then, since it was so, since the first one was a success. I figured I'd do a follow-up to maybe throw 10 artists at you guys that maybe you're not familiar with. Ways to branch out. Ways to continue to branch out. And we'll see the response that this one gets, and hell, I'll show you guys every record I got in my jazz record I've got in my collection, if it helps you guys. If it helps get more people involved and interested in this holy shit format, in my opinion. Anyway, I can talk all day. Those of you who've seen my videos, especially my earlier ones, know this one. This one's probably running a bit too long. So, guys, if you actually give these albums a try, whether you stream them, buy the CDs, buy the reissued vinyl, like I've suggested, and like them, shoot me a message. Let me know. Or if you don't like them and you're like, Chris, why the hell did you recommend that record? Let me know that too. It's all good. Until next time, please give these wonderful albums a try, you guys. They're great. I wouldn't recommend them otherwise. Please keep getting into the world of jazz. These guys deserve to hear their music heard. Have their music heard, excuse me. And until the next time, till the next video, keep dropping that needle, you guys. Have a good one.